Hello and welcome to our Roguelike framework tutorial series. Before we get started, I'd like to go over what you can expect from this series, as well as what you need to do to prepare for it. First off, this is a framework series, so it's going to provide you with the backbone of what you need to start on your own roguelike project, but it's not going to guide you through the entire process of creating a roguelike game. Now, the series may expand further in the future, but for now, the plan is to cover 5 primary topics: attributes, inventory, items, rewards, and progression. These 5 topics are the main components to nearly every roguelike in existence. Before you begin on the project, I hope that you take a moment and watch the tutorial prep video that you should see a link on the screen now to go and watch. This video will help prepare you for this tutorial series by providing you with some of the basics, as well as the game manager scripts that we will be using throughout this series. You can also find a link to those project files in the description of this video. If you're coming from one of my other series, please know that you can seamlessly integrate this framework into the other frameworks I've provided tutorials on so far. Okay, well I think I've covered just about everything. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, this is from the saved project files that you can find a link to in the description of this video. You can see here we already have our game manager with our audio manager and options manager prefabs created. We can go inside our folders and we find them all in here, as well as the scripts for those objects. To get started, let's go ahead and create a new object. We'll name it Attributes Manager. Let's make it a child of our game manager, and inside of our managers folder, we'll create C# script attributes manager. Then we'll go to this object and we will add it. Oh, let it load for just a moment. Then we'll go to this object and we'll add it here. Next, let's go to our game manager and add our attributes manager as part of our initialize manager's methods. So we can copy this right here, and we're going to replace it with attributes manager, attributes manager. And we can do the same thing down here inside of our initialize managers. We can copy paste that, and we'll do the same thing for this little check here. We'll copy the attributes manager, replace everything that says options manager. Okay, let's go and save that script. Return to the game. Go to our attributes manager. Go to our manager's prefab folder. Drag or drop our attributes manager in there. Now we just want to confirm that everything's working. Let's go ahead and delete our attributes manager from the hierarchy. Make sure you have it saved down here. Delete the attributes manager from the hierarchy. Hit play. Then we can drop this down and we should see attributes manager clone on there. If you don't see that, something's messed up somewhere, so please take a moment and review your script. Going to stop running, and I'm going to drag my attributes manager back into my scene. Before we get into our attributes manager, I need to make some player classes that we can preload our script with. So it's just going to be some starting attributes, basically. So I'm going to go into our scripts folder. I'm going to right-click, create C# script. I'm going to name this player class. And go inside the player class, and I'm going to do something pretty simple here. First, I'm just going to delete everything. So put in using Unity Engine. And then I'm going to put in, I'm going to create my own namespace. I'm going to do namespace Sinuous Productions. You can think of namespaces as sort of like organizational structure for our code. What it allows us to do is it allows us to easily reference methods and classes inside of different namespaces more easily. That's why at the top of our scripts you see these using statements. That means that we're pulling in those namespaces so we can more easily reference the methods. Now I'm going to start here by doing create asset menu, file name, going to equal player class. And then I'm going to go in the next line, I'm going to do public class player class scriptable object. So this right here means that we're going to inherit from another class called scriptable object. And what this does, it just lets you kind of create objects or create assets that kind of are inside of our file structure that we can load and store attributes and things like that we want to load when we need them. Okay, and then I just need to make all our attributes. So for this video, we're going to use 7 attributes: integer max health, float class damage, integer class cost, float class speed, class accuracy, class crit chance, class crit damage. Now usually I don't have an underscore before my variables, but because we're actually going to be referencing these exact variables but in different ways multiple times, that's why I'm using the class underscore prefix here. We're going to go ahead and save this, and then we're going to go back inside of our Unity editor. Inside of our resources folder, we're going to create folder, and we're going to name this player classes. Inside that folder, we can right click, create, and you can see, remember how inside of our script we put create asset menu file name player class? You can see now when we right click here, we can go to create, we have that option to create a player class. We click that, we're going to name this starter class. We're going to create one more. We're going to name this one fast class. So for our starter class, let's just throw in some random attributes to start with. We'll do 100 for our starting health, 5 for our damage. We don't want to modify our cost at all yet. Our speed will do 10. Our accuracy will do 0.5. Our crit chance will do 0.1. Our crit damage will do 1.5. So we'll multiply our damage by 1.5 when we get a crit. And for our fast class, we'll make some slight modifications there. Maybe a little bit lower health. Same damage, I think. But for our speed, we're going to double our speed. We're going to have slightly worse accuracy. But a much better crit chance. No, not 5. I'm going to do 0.5. Much better crit chance and better crit damage. So you can see how you can start building off of this and make more and more classes that have different starting attributes as you need them. We're going to return to our scripts folder. We're going to go into our managers, and we're going to go into our attribute manager script. Now first, I want to put this inside of the namespace I made earlier. I'm going to do namespace Sinuous Productions. And then I'm going to put it inside those brackets. Oops. Right click here, format document, should fix everything. There we go. Going to delete what we have here to start. And before we do anything else, I want to kind of declare a little bit of a dictionary for what our attributes are. To do that, I'm going to do public enum attribute. And what this is doing is it's just giving a list of attributes that we're going to have in our game, basically. So if you remember, we did damage. Oh, almost forgot. Sorry. We had max health first. And we had damage, cost, speed, accuracy, crit chance, and crit damage. So again, this is just providing a referenceable list of all of our attributes. Next, we need to declare those attributes. I'm going to copy and paste this over from what I've written before, but you'll get the idea. Paste this in, and you see that basically what we're doing here is that we have our core attributes, which is basically all those attributes that we had before. Oh, I forgot max damage on this one, so let me... Not max damage, I forgot max health. And min health. Actually, forgot health altogether, so let me fix that real quick. So I'm going to paste this in here, which you see we've got it divided up into our core attributes, our attribute limits, and our stored attribute. So I did a underscore to delineate our I did a underscore as a prefix for the attributes that are kind of live attributes, right? You can see that the health is an int, damage is float, cost is an int, and the rest are all floats. And then I basically repeated that for our maximums and our minimums for all of our attributes. And I actually want to change this minimum cost actually in -5. And then I did a stored attribute, so if we want to save an attribute to reference it later, we can do that here. Finally, there's one more variable that we need right now. I'll make an other section here. I'm going to do public player class. Player class, I'm going to set it to null for now. Now, there are 6 methods that we need to interact with our class attributes. Or with our attributes, not class attributes, just attributes in general. So we're going to go ahead and make those methods. We're going to go ahead and make those methods. Public void modify attribute. And we're going to take 2 arguments here. The first is going to be an attribute. The second is going to be a float. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing for other classes, or other methods. So public void. This one's going to be store attribute. Oh, didn't mean to put a paste there. Attribute. We're just going to take the attribute that we want to store. All right, our next one that we want to create is going to be public void for all attribute. And we don't need any arguments for this. We're going to do public void restore attribute. So let's say that there's an attribute that we want to revert back to where we had previously. We can do that using this method. Attribute. Two more that we need to make here. Public void restore all attributes. Nope, we don't need any arguments for this one. And then finally, our last method, public void load player class. We're going to take in an argument of player class. Okay, there we go. Let's return back to our modify attribute method that we have here. So what we need to do is we need to basically take the attribute that we want to modify and then modify it, right? So we're going to do a switch. We're going to do attribute. So what this does is it basically says that we can input different variables into the switch, and if that switch is defined, or if that variable or attribute or whatever we're putting into there is defined, it'll find the case for that variable, and it will execute whatever we've defined for that case. So we're gonna start with our case. We're going to start with case attribute max health. And what we want to do now is we want to modify our a underscore max health. Now we want to make sure that our health does not go above our max health, and doesn't go below our min max. Our min max health. Can't say that. Alright, and so the way that we do that is there's a method called mathf.clamp. And what it does is it basically takes a value and then makes sure that it is within the range that we're putting in. So for instance, if we did a value of 0.5 and the range was 0 to 1, it would make sure that it would stay between that 0 and 1. And if we put in like 2 inside of that, but it was within 0 and 1, it would actually clamp it down to a 1. Does that make sense? I hope. Alright, so we're going to do a underscore max health plus value. We're going to do min max health max health. Okay, so we have a little red line here, and the reason why is because if you remember, we're accepting floats here, but our max health is actually an integer. What we can do to address that is we can actually declare that we want to force it as an integer. Okay, and then once we find that case, we want to break. And that's all there is to it. We need to do this for all of our variables. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it down here. I'm going to change this to damage. And then modify everywhere that says max health. And then finally, delete the little int that we have right there. Okay, so go ahead and do that for the rest of our values that we have here. Okay, so you can see here I've completed the rest of our values that we have, or the rest of our attributes that we have. Now there is a final thing that we need to add on here, and that is default. This is if we haven't declared what to do with that attribute, it's just going to do our default. And for our default, what we want to do is we actually want to debug.log. And this one we're going to do a warning for, which is going to be a little bit more severe of a log than just a blank one, or just a regular log. And then I'm going to put the little $sign there because it lets us put in a declared value inside of there, a declared variable inside of there. Do invalid attribute passed to modify attribute, and then the attribute that we passed. And then finally, we'll break. And there we go. We have completed our method for modify attributes. Now let's move down to our stored attributes. So remember, what we want to do for our stored attributes is that we want to just make our S max health the same as our A max health. And to do that, we're going to basically need the same cases that we had before, but we're going to do a little bit different stuff with it. So what we can do is we can go up here and we can go ahead and copy that, paste it into here, and we're just going to delete that line, and instead we'll put in S underscore max health equal to A underscore max health. And then you'll just repeat that for the rest of the attributes. And then finally, for our default down here, we need to change this just a little bit because it's no longer that method. We just need to change the name of the method. All right, we can go ahead and save. Now we're going to move down to our store all attributes. And this one's pretty simple because we're storing all of them, so we don't need any fancy logic. We just need to do store max health, or equals attribute max health. And then just do the same for all of them. Alright, so you can see I did the rest of them there, and that's all there is for this method. Moving down to restore attributes, this is kind of the reverse of our store attribute. So we can actually just go ahead and copy our logic that we have here into our restore attributes. Then we just need to go through and swap our A and our S. Go ahead and do that for the rest of the attributes. You can see here I've finished modifying those. Don't forget to go down here to our debug log and change this to restore. Now down to our restore all attributes. This is, again, the reverse of our store all attributes. We can just copy, paste again. We just need to go through and reverse our attributes. You can see I've done all the attributes there for restore. Now we need to go to our load player class. Now this one's a little bit different than the other ones that we had before, because we do have to take certain considerations here. So first we need to make sure that if our player class is null, then we're going to do a debug log warning. And we're just going to put in player class to load is null. And then else. So if we have defined our player class, then we want to set our player class equal to player class to load. And actually I need to go up here to this method. I forgot to add to load there. Okay, and then we can actually copy what we have here for restore all attributes. Right click, format document so it looks nice. And then what I need to do is I just need to change this to class and put player class to load dot class. There we go. And then I gotta do the same thing for all these other variables. After we have loaded all those variables, we want to go ahead and store them. We're going to do store all attribute. Let's save that right there. And we are finished with our attributes manager. We did quite a bit of coding there. So go ahead and give yourself a little pat on the back. But this is very robust and it's going to handle pretty much all of our cases that we need for modifying our attributes. Now you can see on here that Game Manager is giving me a little bit of an error message. That is because earlier we put this script as underneath the namespace Sinuous Productions. So I'm going to go back over to our Game Manager. I'm just going to add in using Sinuous Productions. Simple enough. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to let this load in. And if you don't have any compile errors, that's great. If we click on our Attributes Manager here, you can see all of our starting values. Now, I know you probably don't want to leave that there. You want to see like, oh, well, now we made all these methods. Can we actually use them? So in the description of this video, you'll find a link to the project files. And in there, you're going to find a couple of scripts. And those files for today's episode, you'll want to download the RLFW Episode 1 test scripts. And in there, you'll find Attribute Modifier Tester and Attribute Modifier Tester Editor. These are a couple of scripts that I put together just so we can test this stuff, so I don't really feel like it's worth going over how to write these scripts on your own right now, especially given the length of this video already. So go ahead and drag the Attribute Modifier Tester into your scripts folder, and then drag the Attribute Modifier Tester Editor into the editor folder that we made before. Now I'm getting some errors here, so let's go ahead and see right here. It says we don't have a restore attribute inside of our Attributes Manager script. Let me go check our Attributes Manager, because I'm pretty sure that we wrote that in there. Let's see, did I... Restore. Oh, I actually need to put an S here. So yeah, we can just go ahead and take off that S. Save that. I had another error in here, but seems like it resolved itself, I think. Okay, so now I'm going to go to our attributes manager here. I'm going to collapse this. I'm going to add component, attributes, modifier, tester. You can see here, we've got a bunch of stuff that you can, bunch of little buttons on here that you can test stuff with. And if you go to our console, it should log things. I'm going to go into my console, and I'm going to hit play. You can see on our attributes manager, we've got all these options here on our tester script. So I'm going to modify our max health to 50. Modify attribute, and you see max health is now 50. Now let's see if I add 10 to that. See, now our value is 60. If I drop down this, you can see that's set to 60. So now I'm going to test storing the attribute. And then I'm going to subtract 25 from max health. Now the value is 35. I hit restore attribute. Now it's back to 60. Now I can go in here. I'm going to select our starter class. And I'm going to hit load a player class. Now I got this warning here, whenever I did that, that player class is null, even though we know it's not null. And it did successfully load it. We can check our attributes here, and we see that it did actually modify some attributes. Let's go and take a look at our script and see why it's still saying that's null. You can see here, I found the issue. It's saying that our player class is null, and we meant to actually put player class to load instead of just player class. Be able to save that and jump back over here. I'm going to play it again. I set a player class to starter class. I'm going to load a player class. It says it loaded. And look, now you can see all the attributes for the player class. Okay, and that's it for the attributes for today. I know that it was a pretty coding heavy lesson there. That's how all of these are going to be because we're just building a framework. You're not going to see a whole lot in the actual game and in the scene, but we will be adding some stuff in the future the way you'll have to do that just so I can show you how it works. Yeah, the next episode that I'm working on for this series is setting up an inventory. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Join our Discord if you want to get some more information about this. You'll also find in our Discord a copy of the entire project. So jump over to the Discord if you want that, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.